What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. What is going on, everybody? Happy middle of the week and getting ready for Thursday Night Football, which should be a barn burner when the Bills destroy the Dolphins. Given Tua's like, yeah, can't even do remotely anything that Josh Allen can do. Like, we know. But today I do want to talk about the Bears. They're playing the Cowboys with Tom Brady on the microphone. So we got a lot going on. Want to hit on. I do think this is a very, very important game for the Bears because sometimes the season get away from you and negativity can just snowball where there's no stopping it. And I do think in a place when it comes to we'll dive into it. But I want to defend Tom Brady. Khalil Mack, we had some information on him. Mahomes turned 30 today, and something Jordan Mailata of the Eagles said. Obviously, they have a big game of a playoff rematch with the Los Angeles Rams coming up. Sean McVay, if he was a player, he'd be on the shelf because he was injured. Luckily, he's just a coach, and a pretty good one. So we got a big game in Philadelphia. So a lot going on football-wise. We'll have later out today, I talked to Kyle Brandt of Good Morning Football, and we will also should have a mailbag as well. So a lot of content flying around. We are in the middle of football season. Buckle up. Very, very excited to talk some ball. But before we do, I got to tell you about my friends, my partners, the official ticketing app of this podcast. Here's the thing. Best ticketing app in America. I know you guys want to go to an event. I know you want to go to a game. I know your team is playing either home, away. You want to go see them. We got you covered. Because with GameTime, you can search by the team. You can search by the arena. You can search by the stadium, price points, where you want to sit. If you're going to a concert, and I've done this countless times, where exactly you are relative to the stage. They have flash deals. It does not get any easier, so take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use the code JOHN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Use the code JOHN, that's my name, John, for $20 off. Download the GameTime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. This might sound a little crazy because obviously I don't view this team as a playoff team. They're not a contender. But in terms of the health of their season, I don't think it's crazy to say this is must win for the Bears. Because I'll never forget when I first got into radio. I worked with a lot of people that had been in the business for a long time. And back then, radio, kind of like television, if you're a news anchor, you kind of bounce around. It's like being a coach. You go wherever the job is. I say this all the time. I feel very fortunate that I'm in this era where I didn't need to just move to some other city for my career when it came to talking about sports. I could just create a studio in my room, in a shed, wherever, and talk on a microphone and do the job. Technology has benefited me greatly. And same thing when it comes to these radio hosts that have transitioned into podcasts. But I remember a buddy of mine, John Lund, who's a longtime radio host, been everywhere in the country, said, worked in Detroit. And he said one thing that stood out to him in that market was guys like negativity because they were used to losing. The Lions lost all the time. Now, clearly that has changed with Dan Campbell. And I thought the same thing in Philadelphia. Not that they like losing because they don't. But in terms of successful radio, you will crush it if they win, just like you will crush it if they're losing because people have no problem tuning in to the negativity. It's the opposite on the West Coast. I lived in the Bay Area. When the teams lose, people turn you off. You can say it's fair weather. They do not like negativity. When things turn south with a football team, with a basketball team, with a baseball team, your ratings plummet. Some places, they at least stay the same, if not go up. And I do think Chicago, when it comes to the media, when it comes to the fan base, there's a lot of negativity surrounding, the franchise. And getting Ben Johnson was a really big deal. They gave him a ton of money. And the hopes were high. Hell, I kind of bought in. I'm like, I think they're going to be dramatically better. But as a buddy of mine texted me today, he's like, God, and this is a buddy in the league. It's pretty ugly right now for Ryan Poles. He clearly overrated the roster. People are coming for him. And we see sometimes, and this happens in the SEC a lot, when people are out for you, it's hard to fend off that tsunami that ultimately leads to you losing your job. And I think if the Bears, if they were to lose this game to the Dallas Cowboys, now granted, they're currently an underdog at home against a team that we did not think was going to be good at all in Brian Schottenheimer, whose defensive coordinator is Matt Eberflus. And they come to Chicago and they win this thing, it could kind of get out of control because they're not going to be any good on the road throughout the season. They don't play the Packers till the end of the year. They got some guaranteed L's upcoming on the season. And then they just have some random road games like the Raiders and the Commanders, where it's like, yeah, you could win those games or you could lose them both. So all of a sudden you look up and the Bears are like 2-6. They have a first-time head coach who I saw this clip. I was at the gym and I looked up and McAfee was on one of the televisions and they were showing Ben Johnson, and I hadn't seen it till Wednesday after the loss to Detroit, where obviously they gave up 50 points and they got blown out in the second half. And he goes up Dan Campbell, a very brief interaction, and then starts sprinting toward the locker room. And Jared Goff, who obviously thinks extremely highly of Ben Johnson, who has to look at Ben going, this guy helped resurrect my career, who got his back after the game saying, I didn't love the F Ben Johnson chants in the stadium, tried to go shake his hand, and Ben Johnson barely gave him the time of day and sprinted the locker room. Now, I get, you show me a good loser, and I'll show you a loser, right? Tom Brady was notoriously a sore loser. Same thing with Belichick. But typically they were losing to whoever in the Super Bowl or the AFC Championship game. There was no connection. Those guys, specifically Goff, the rest of the offensive guys, and Dan Campbell, changed the course of Ben Johnson and his family's life. Ben Johnson just signed a 5-year contract worth $13 million a year. If you do the math, you're talking $65+ million. And his kids will never not go to private schools. His wife will never not drive a G-Wagon. I'm talking if he gets fired, if his career just tumbles moving forward, he will be at the nicest country clubs eating dinner moving forward. His life financially completely changed because of the Lions. And I get it sucks losing. These guys are all really competitive. But those guys changed your life. And I think, and listen, I understand he's a tightly wound, focused guy. You can't for 2 seconds pretend to be like, hey, man, good game. Show a little sportsmanship of humans that you know, that you needed, that sent you on this trajectory that you're at currently, making a ton of money and one of the highest paid coaches in the NFL and don't even have a career win under your belt. Not all his fault. He didn't build this roster together. Ryan Poles, who I think we have to acknowledge is one of the worst GMs. But here's the thing. I'll never forget when I was doing local radio and Jim Tomsula was the head coach of the 49ers. And they actually weren't record-wise as bad as you think. If you just said, what was Jim Tomsula's record as a head coach? Someone would be like, 1-15. They only played 16 games. 2-14. He won 5. Now, one of the games he lost was to the Cleveland Browns, who had Mike Pettin, who was their coach at the time. And the Niners, I'm pretty sure they played him in Cleveland. Cleveland wasn't good, and they beat him. And Pettin said after, he's like, everyone keeps acting like our franchise is in shambles. Our house is on fire, and they kind of were at the time. What do we think about them? I mean, we just beat them. Let's point the finger at that operation. He was right. And the Cowboys, polarizing organization, they got lucky that the Giants defenders have absolutely no clue what they're doing when it came to just trying to make sure that Ferguson can't just run down the seam and put this guy that can kick 70-yard field goals and give him the opportunity to have an attempt. So, I understand the Cowboys are 1-1. They probably should have lost that game, right? So you get Eberflus rolling in, this thing could get really ugly really fast. And obviously it already is bad. But I said this about Ben Johnson coming in, is that there is no training ground to be the head man, right? You understand offense. You gain the experience of dealing with different players throughout your assistant coaching career as a position coach and as a coordinator. But you never have everyone start talking to you about, why isn't this guy not getting the touches? Why is this guy inactive on game day? Why are you looking at this guy weird? What's going on with your entire team? What's going on with your relationship with the gentleman? The questions you get asked as the head man, whether they're true or not, are completely different. And then obviously as things happen, it's like, Well, would you guys be open to trading players? You don't ask coordinators that because you know it's not their call. Well, when it comes down to Ben Johnson, like, do you see your relationship with Ryan Poles being something you guys can work through when you're 1-8? And I think the Bears are staring disaster in the face. And if they want to get this thing just somewhat credible, to me, this is a must-win game. And you get the Cowboys that kind of come in, no pressure now, and can just sling that thing around. So Dennis Allen, that defense, Ben Johnson, this game's going to be fascinating. And obviously, a main reason for that is Tom Brady. Okay, today's show is brought to you by our new presenting sponsor, Hard Rock Bet. It's week 3, and if you haven't tried your first bet yet on Hard Rock, there's still time for you to get 150 in bonus bets if you win. Just place a $5 bet. If it hits, you not only get your winnings, but 150 in bonus bets. Thursday Night Football is happening, AFC East. The Dolphins go into the Bills. I like the Bills big, not only to cover the spread, but every prop when it comes to Josh Allen. I think he goes nuts. Throws several touchdowns, runs for a touchdown. I like to have a massive game and dominate the Dolphins. We got big-time college football coming up. I do like a couple underdogs. I do think Auburn, who played Oklahoma really well last year, is going to be feisty in this game. I also think Texas Tech against Utah. I think Utah's pretty good, but Texas Tech had a bunch of guys come in the transfer portal. They've spent a lot of money on this team, as well as Tulane against Ole Miss. I like those underdogs to keep it frisky. Hard Rock Bet has a new promos every day. This week's there's profit boost for 5 straight days of football. That's a Thursday night profit boost, a Friday college profit boost, another profit boost Saturday's college games, plus NFL Sunday, like the Steelers big that weekend, and Monday night, kind of like the Lions. Let's get it on. And obviously Tom Brady has become a talking point after he was seen in the coaching box. And I saw Ben Johnson actually was asked today about that situation of talking to Tom throughout the week, being that he's calling the game, and he didn't think it was that big a deal. Now, they're friends, and remember, one of the reasons that he interviewed with the Raiders was because Tom personally called him and asked. He wasn't even going to give them the time of day, so he thinks extremely highly of Tom, just as most, I'm sure, offensive coordinators, head coaches that are offensive coordinators, offensive personnel in the league. Like, not just like Tom, revere him, want to be friends with him because they want to talk offensive football. But Tom Brady's kind of getting, I saw Portnoy today say that Tom Brady, that Saudi situation he's doing with the flag football, is being paid $75 million to be the all-time quarterback in this Saudi, flag football operation. And listen, I said this about Liv back when it happened before they bought ad space. I was never that emotionally like, this guy's a loser for taking the money. It's easy for you to say if you were Bryson DeChambeau, Phil Mickelson, Brooks Koepka, or DJ, and they're throwing $150, $200 million in front of your face. It's like, yeah, let's see your morals now. It's easy to talk from your couch eating a bag of Cheetos. Tom Brady taking $75 million from Saudis. A lot of people are going to have different takes about their moral stances. Like, you've never been offered $75 million for 3 games of all-time quarterback. I mean, it's going to be the easiest money he's ever made. But I've heard a lot of people say, like, why is he so aggressively now doing stuff that he never did in the past? Like Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods, they don't put themselves out there like Tom Brady is. And it kind of hit me this morning. They don't have to. Because Michael Jordan got, whether it's because of his mom, whatever the real story is in the negotiation when it came to the Jordan brand, got points in the deal, which has obviously made him a billionaire several times over. He made one of the smartest contracts off the court in the history of sports, getting revenue from his brand. Tiger Woods, for about a 10-year period in the 2000s, was making $70 to $90 million off the course. He is also currently a billionaire. Both those guys, obviously Michael had the revenue. Tiger never owned his Nike contract, right? Nike just paid him. He didn't own Buick. He didn't own all these people he was doing deals with, but his brand was so lucrative, he made an extreme amount of money. And those guys now can say no to countless things. If Michael Jordan or Tiger Woods really wanted to get aggressive and buy part of an NFL team, even if it was 5-10%, They have way more money than Tom. Never forget, Tom took discounts for years with the Patriots. I bet if we did a deep research on it, probably average 15 to 20% of a year for 15 plus years when it came to his Patriot contracts. The other thing he did that was a lot different than say his peer Peyton Manning, it doesn't feel like in the prime of his career he was as aggressive with commercials. You turn on the television now, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, hell, going back to Baker Mayfield when he first got in the league, the top quarterbacks are everywhere on television. Remember that first game against Ohio State and Arch Manning's first start? He had more commercials than touchdowns. He was on like 3 different ads. So, like Tom Brady, you could argue, was much more focused on the field during his career than he was about financially maximizing every penny. Now, he was still worth hundreds of millions of dollars and doing fine, but when Tom's career ended, he wants to own an NFL team. And if you look around at the price points for owning an NFL team, look at the guys getting involved. It's like David Tepper, one of the greatest stock traders in the history of the world. Look at the owners just in general in sports. Some of these new guys, Ballmer. I mean, they have an ungodly amount of money. And Tom Brady is not on that level. I mean, neither is Peyton Manning. So if they want in on that space, they have to be ultra aggressive. And he got very lucky that Mark Davis reached out to him. This is according to Mark Davis. I told him I wanted in on the deal. But remember, he was going to give him a sweetheart deal. The league said, no, no, no. We can't have that. Whatever percentage you give him has to be based on the market value. Well, Mark Davis does not have children. So when he dies, I don't exactly know how his trust in that situation will go down. There is not, Al Davis Jr. at 40 years old that is primed to take over the team. Like when you go around the Dallas Cowboys, he has sons who are taking over. Jeffrey Lurie has Julian Lurie, who's going to take over the team. You just look around the league, there is typically the Irsay daughters. There are people that are going to take it from their fathers that keep it in the family. This is a family business, even though these are billion-dollar operations. The Raiders do not have that. So Tom, clearly, if he looks around the league, he goes, this is my best opportunity. One I'm already in. You'd be like, of course it's the best opportunity. Where else? We have seen before some of these guys be minority owners in other teams, Jimmy Haslam, David Tepper, and then get the opportunity to buy other teams. So there are guys that are currently you don't know as well who own a small percentage of this team, that team, the next team that go, hey, if there's ever an opportunity to buy, I want an opportunity to bid. And I'm sure have more money than Tom. So you could argue that Tom, if he wants to one day take over one of these operations, he needs to be a whore when it comes to doing these deals because that's currently what he is. And he can't, it's like, why would Tom waste his weekends flying around? I get $375 million. He needs the money, right? Why would Tom take $75 million, even if it's the easiest money he'll ever make, like with the Saudis? Because that money matters. And I just think like comparing him to MJ and Tiger, they're not comparables. Tiger, you could argue in like the heat and the peak of his career when he was winning the most, was as big of a business whore as you've ever seen. He was on every ad. It was crazy. And he maximized his earning power. And like I said, I just think Jordan's deal is not really comparable to any athlete ever. So I think it's easy to be critical of Tom for doing all this stuff because it doesn't feel like it's like, what's he doing? Like, why is he doing all this stuff? I think it's to accumulate as much money possible to ultimately be the lead dog with the Raiders. And you already see, like, Mark Davis, let him do whatever he wants. But it'd be completely different if, like, not only can I do whatever I want, I'm the majority. Or I own a large percentage of this team, and I'm out front, like, I'm making all the decisions. So I think that is his end game. A couple other NFL stories. Khalil Mack, it was reported today by Pelissaro and Rap Sheet that his dislocation of his not season-ending potentially could just be several weeks. They put him on that short-term IR so they can bring him back in 4 weeks. That is big because I saw Coward today call Harbaugh the greatest coach of all time. And he actually made a pretty compelling point. Like Belichick, Andy, Lombardi, these guys dominated in the pros. Saban, Urban Meyer, whoever, dominated in college. We have never seen a guy go back and forth. Even Pete Carroll, right? Pete Carroll went to the NFL, got run out of the NFL, went to USC, and then went to Seattle. But it's like Jim Harbaugh was in college, then went to the pros, then went back to college, now is back in the pros. It'd be like if Pete, instead of getting the Raiders job, had jumped back to, let's say, USC or just even another school and won again, right? It's pretty crazy what he's doing, especially if he ends up winning a Super Bowl. I don't know if he's the greatest coach of all time. He definitely is on the short list when you factor in college, though. And this team is really, really good. And they have an MVP level quarterback who's playing at a really high level. Their offense is loaded, but there's no replacing this guy. His just, they talked about in the broadcast, his leadership. To me, it's the play. Like, this guy is still a high end, run stuffing guy on the front. He sets the edge, and his pass rush ability might not be like peak Khalil Mack, but it's still pretty freaking good. There's a reason I think they gave him, what, $17, $18 million this offseason? And he's a really good player. If you want to win a Super Bowl, I do think you need this guy. And the only reason I was a little apprehensive after the game, talking about the Chargers' big picture, is like, if he just ripped up his arm and is out for the season, that is a big blow. I know they got around it in one game against Geno Smith. It's a different animal when you're playing Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or Mahomes in a playoff game. So getting them back, I think you got to be pretty bullish on the Chargers. Can I tell you about my friends, the app Hall of Fame? They were created by Ivy League sports geeks to help you dominate the betting market. And here's the thing. I like playing parlays. Who doesn't? And you can just type in your parlay to Hall of Fame, and their analytics breaks down like that one leg is not a good idea. So on this one, this upcoming Saturday, I remove that game because it has less than a 35% chance to hit relative to the rest of my picks. So it can use data, previous games, the current data going into the game to help point out like that's not a good idea, to change it around and help you bet smarter. So our listeners get a 7-day free trial and 50% off their first month. Just download the Hall of Fame HOF app and use code 3andOut at checkout. Again, it helps you bet smarter because sometimes you get a little aggressive. You remove one of them. How often a four-legger? Well, you hit three of them, and you use this information by our Ivy League friends. Bet smarter, baby. For a limited time only, our listeners not only get a 7-day free trial, but they also get 50% off their first month when they use code 3, that's the number 3, and out at checkout. Just download the HOF app, Hall of Fame app, on iOS, Android, and use the code 3 and out, and you're all set. Mahomes turned 30 years old today. I'm always fascinated with guys that have, like, if Scotty Scheffler's career ended today, he had like one of the greatest careers we've ever seen. If Mahomes' career ended today, it's like in his 20s, he went to 5 Super Bowls. He never didn't go to the AFC Championship game. He won multiple MVPs. He took down some of the greatest, players of his era. You could argue, neutralize their career path. I mean, if it wasn't for Patrick Mahomes, do Lamar or specifically Josh have a couple Super Bowls? Right? Do the Eagles have 2? Right? Does Kyle Shanahan have 1? Like, he altered the trajectory of the National Football League. Think of what his impact was on Andy Reid. It wasn't that long ago where people were like, Andy can't win the big one, which is kind of stupid when you really think about it. But he went from not being able to win the big one to being one of the greatest coaches we've ever seen. So props to Mahomes, who just had a pretty incredible 20s. Now, the likelihood that he can continue this, obviously this year has been a little rocky, but even let's say they go 10-7 and they get bounced in the first round, just big picture, like, what's your over-under on how many more Super Bowls Patrick Mahomes gets to? I would say this. It's got to be at least 1 because he has a great coach. They have a good infrastructure. They are going to need to replace some players, right? I feel pretty confident saying this will be Travis Kelce's last year in the NFL. Like, they are going to need a key offensive weapon, specifically a tight end. And Chris Jones, like, how many big-time years does he have left? So they're going to need another big-time defensive lineman. And they're never going to be really shitty, so how are they going to replace these guys? Luckily, they have a GM and a coach that have made some incredible moves over the years. But if he's going to have his, like when Peyton went to Denver, obviously Mahomes hasn't changed teams, but I would say the parallel would be Brady and that Gronkowski, Edelman, McCourty, uh, Hightower, some of those guys. It's just going to be out of his control, and it's going to be a lot of pressure on Veach to get a lot of things right moving forward. But I would not bet against the Chiefs big picture, even if this year is quote unquote underwhelming, for their their expectations. And last but not least is Jordan Mailata had some comments about he thought it was disrespectful saying the Eagles won that game because of the tush push. And I don't totally disagree, but I do think the Eagles probably it feels like in a short period of time, like the way people are talking about the Chiefs, people are just like, I'm just tired of the Chiefs. I'm just tired of the Chiefs. It happens in basketball sometimes. Like, can anyone else win beside LeBron or Curry? Like, and I get it. Like, if you're not a fan of one of these specific teams or this specific player, even if you like the sport, you're like, can we just get something new? And then you get something new, and I like see the ratings. Like, well, I gave you the Oklahoma City Thunder. Why aren't you watching? Right? I mean, there's something to be said. It's like, can anyone win beside the Yankees? I remember thinking that when I was a kid. It's like then the Yankees disappeared, and you get like the Marlins. It's like, yeah, people aren't watching this World Series, fellas. The Marlins or like Diamondbacks versus the Rockies versus the White Sox. It's like sometimes you got it pretty good, but I do think the Eagles quickly are like a lot of people are going to start rooting against them, and the tush push is just one of those. It's probably the most polarizing play of all time because you could be like, the Wildcat is going to take over the league. We've had situations like that. The spread offense, the pistol. This is just one specific play that only one team can run, and we know it's inevitable, and people are just rooting against them. And then it brings into Jalen Hurts. It's like this guy just won the Super Bowl, has played fantastic in two Super Bowls, obviously has had some huge moments in his short career. Wally pipped in the blink of an eye Carson Wentz and took the Eagles to another level. And people was like, is he good? And I looked today, like, how many yards does he have through two games? Obviously, he didn't have many yards against the Chiefs because Chris Jones was yelling at him. He has 250 yards passing in two games. He has no passing touchdowns. Now, granted, he has three on the ground, obviously a couple tush pushes, but I just think people are going to start rooting against them. And last year or last couple years, the Big Dom thing, they've kind of been fun. They have this, GM, but you got Sirianni. I saw him doing this thing like singing Eminem on the way to the locker room. I just think that they might just jump the Chiefs of someone that everyone's just going to root against, beside Eagles fans. And Eagles fans are going to eat this up because they naturally have a chip on their shoulder. We're finally good, the defending champs, and everyone's talking shit about us. This is a big weekend because I think the Rams, if you're not an Eagles fan, everyone's rooting for the Rams. And obviously the Rams were right there last year. If they could somehow corral Jalen, who had a awesome run that opened up the game against them, and it's just a threat on the ground, can just corral him a little bit and make him beat you with his arm. So far this season, he hasn't proven that. And the crazy thing about Philly, despite being 2-0, defending champs, a little undercurrent. I saw like a Reddit board. I saw some comments. There was something the Eagles put out in the comments on Instagram. The offensive coordinator better get some passing yards and some passing touchdowns here really soon, or people are going to get grouchy. So there's always something bubbling, even when times are good in Philly. I not only have worked there, but I follow that team really closely, and I can already see the offensive coordinator being a little under fire, being asked some questions. Not like he's going to get fired in the middle of the year, but it's one of those things they can never quite be too happy. And I think that game, it's a big one for the Rams. The Eagles. The other thing, looking at the Eagles' schedule, even if they were to win this, their schedule is really hard. So, and you look at the Green Bay Packers, you look at the Rams. I mean, getting the one seed in both conferences is just really important given that there's only one team that gets a bye now. And we know as the season drags on, that bye is, I don't even think we talk about it enough because we were just so accustomed for so long that it's like, hey, you just one of the top two seeds, you get a breather. That's a big difference getting that, two seed. It's like, well, you got to play. Sometimes you got to play like Sunday night. You got to play a good opponent. It's not necessarily easy. So fascinated to watch the conversation around the Philadelphia Eagles.